What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here from DFS Army, and this is the Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast where we are talking running backs, and we're taking a look at our top 10 running backs for the 2022 fantasy season. Let's do this. All right, I'm back with Flex Shane to break down the top 10 running backs for the 2022 fantasy football season. Remember, if you like this content, to subscribe to the channel for more great Bold Call fantasy football podcasts. We're taking a look at our top 10 running backs, and I'm just going to start right at the top, Shane. The easiest is number one overall. Jonathan Taylor is the consensus number one running back this season. He's got workhorse production. He's on a team. He's got exactly the formula for success at running back. The team plays great defense. The team wants to run the football. The team is a conservative team. So they're keeping the scores close. They're playing great defense. They run the football. And Jonathan Taylor, talent-wise, there's no one better at the position right now. Breaking tackles, long runs, he does it all. Jonathan Taylor, number one overall. Easy pick.
That's an easy pick. And people were worried about his role in the passing game. He still averaged about 3 targets per game, which isn't fantastic, but it helps. If he catches one or two of those, it gets 5-10 yards, maybe gets in the box. Like, those will help move the needle. And listen, JT is as safe as it gets. Here's the thing: if you have the 101, even if you don't agree that Jonathan Taylor is the 101, take him at 101.
I'm going to make a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
My counterpoint to it is, if I believe that actually Cooper Kupp is the number one overall player in fantasy football this season. Therefore, I'm going to issue permission right here on the Bold Call.
Okay.
I'm going to give permission because it feels uncomfortable to do this, but I've come around. You have number one, 1.1 overall. You have my permission to take Cooper Kupp over Jonathan Taylor. But that said, don't take a different running back over Taylor. He is the number one running back on the board this year. But again, Bold Call permission to take Cooper Kupp. Number two on the board. This is the Bold Call.
I got nothing. Yeah, I got nothing.
Number two on the board for me and for Shane. Looks like we agree on number two. Christian McCaffrey. Now, Shane, Christian McCaffrey, a little scarier than Jonathan Taylor because he's been hurt the better part of the last 2 seasons. And he has destroyed your chances of winning your leagues when you've drafted him. There's hatred in my heart for a player that destroys my chances 2 seasons in a row. You did it once. Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. What do we do when you fool me 3 times? Quit.
Listen, you just quit. That's it. You pack up your bags. You go home. You cry yourself to sleep. Maybe have a cold shower. Listen, for the entire offseason so far, I've had Christian McCaffrey as my RB 3 or 4. But when push comes to shove and I'm on the clock and I'm staring at, I'm probably taking JT1. I'm likely going to go either Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson at 2-3. And then I'm staring at the clock. I have a hard time not getting Christian McCaffrey. His massive upside is just too prolific. It's week winning. I get that he could mess up your team. So there's that worry, but man, he's healthy right now. As of right now, he's healthy, and that's what matters.
Yeah, we can't predict injuries. I don't love the offense for the Panthers. I do think they're going to end up bringing in a Baker Mayfield or somebody to helm the team. I don't love Christian McCaffrey if they don't. So be careful. A Sam Darnold helm team is just not going to score very much, period. But I think the Panthers will get that figured out. And again, Christian McCaffrey is just such a weapon that even last year, even coming off the injury in those games, he was still putting up 20, 25 fantasy points for the few games he played. He's the man. So yeah, give me Christian McCaffrey, number 2 overall. Number 3, and we're going to divert a little bit here in our ranking, Shane, but I've got DeAndre Swift as my number 3 overall running back this season. DeAndre Swift just does it all. I love that they play indoors on the carpet in Detroit. The kid is a prolific pass-catching running back, and he could break one from behind the line of scrimmage. He could break one from anywhere on the field. Yes, Detroit is not a great team. They're a bit of a losing team, but I like my running backs that catch passes. He's going to be healthy going into the season. I think this is the year that DeAndre Swift becomes a superstar, and I want to get on that a little bit early.
I absolutely love. So we're on the Bold Calls Fantasy Football Podcast, and that's a bold call having DeAndre Swift at number 3. But here's the thing, right? Like, it's funny. I've been trying to study a lot of these high stakes players, and high stakes players throw ADPs out the window. They say, "Listen, this is my guy. I think DeAndre Swift is going to be the third highest scoring running back, and that's how you're going to rank him." ADP
We
be
think
damned.
that we think that ADP, you use ADP, it's a guideline, but that's the
Mhm.
donkey ranking. If I'm not going off of ADP, I'm not winning league. I didn't win all my leagues last year by assuming that Robert Woods was better than Cooper Kupp like ADP
Mhm.
did. I thought
Or
that was
Brandon
ridiculous.
Ayuk.
I didn't win my leagues last year by assuming that Debo Samuel was a worse player than Brandon Ayuk. Go back and watch. We had both of those guys ahead. I have both of those guys on all my teams last season. I didn't load up on David Montgomery where he was last year and have him lead my team to championships because I believed in ADP. You've got to make bold choices. And DeAndre Swift is one of those plays. Bold choice. Like, this is a guy who's going to get six receptions. He is live for 6 receptions a game. I think that Detroit is a slightly better team than they were going into last year as well. So give me Swift, number 3 overall.
Yeah, man, he was getting 6 targets a game last year, which is near the top. Actually tied for the top. So, I mean, it's going to continue. Unfortunately, on Thanksgiving last year, he had the shoulder injury, which kind of derailed the rest of the season. But if he could stay healthy, Jamal Williams, everybody was so worried about Jamal Williams last year. He didn't do squat.
More
Third downs, come
importantly,
out of here.
even you can't really trust Jamal Williams as a premium handcuff because even when Swift didn't play for a few games, they actually didn't feed Jamal Williams the full workload. They actually brought in some other dude as whose name I can't even remember right now as well. So I think it was Jamar Jefferson or something like that. So can't rely on.
Jermar was a rookie last year. He was fine,
Yeah,
but
he was fine, but like you thought it was going to go to Jamal Williams, and it didn't. So difficult to handcuff DeAndre Swift. Be careful about that. All right, number 4 overall, and again, a lot of people ADP has Austin Eckler in this spot. And actually has him around number 3 overall. But once again, I am going a little bit off script here. And my number 4 running back overall for the 2022 fantasy football season is actually Najee Harris.
I love that pick.
Yeah, Najee is the definition of a workhorse running back. I don't mind a running back that's playing with what I believe will be Mitch Trubisky at the quarterback position. I think he'll be competent enough to operate a decent offense. I think actually even Trubisky is probably more threatening of a pass thrower, a deep pass thrower, than what Ben Roethlisberger was. I think a lot of Najee's struggles last season was because no one respected the deep ball of Roethlisberger, and you could load up and block and on the box, 8 men in the box every single play. Najee Harris is a gigantic human. People don't know this. He is a 245-pound running back. He is very much the same size running back as Derrick Henry, but he's got speed. Now, Harris has a mix of size, speed, and ability that it's like if you just created the prototype NFL running back that you want for fantasy, that's the guy. And the team gives him 90% of the touches. I love it. Everything about Najee looks great this year.
He's a true workhorse. He has very soft hands. For all these reports that he's playing 15 pounds over his measured in weight last year, his playing weight was 241 last year. So he's 3 pounds over his playing weight last year. Don't let that worry you. And you
I
just
like it.
assume it's
I'm
muscle.
for
You
it.
like that. Yeah.
He doesn't look fat like Zeke. Zeke's got a big ass belly when he comes in at 240. Najee looks ripped at 240. Like this is a whole different situation.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with you. I think Mitch Trubisky. I mean, right now we know Kenny Pickett, the rookie, was playing with the threes and OTAs. That's fine. The thing I love about the Steelers is it's a true and a meritocracy. The best players are going to play on the field, and right now Mitchell Trubisky, he's a pro. I mean, this is what 5th year in the league. Obviously 5th or 6th year in the league. So obviously he was a backup last year, but you know what? He learns. He was a backup for Buffalo last year, so he was on that team. He understands the winning culture, and then he goes to another winning culture. They're going to be a competent offense. They have Deontay Johnson. They have now 2 alpha outside wide receivers with the rookie George Pickens and Chase Claypool. Say what you will about Claypool, he still needs to be accounted for. Najee Harris, man, he's going to get those passes close to the line of scrimmage. They aren't going to be able to stack the box against him. He's going to do better last year. than his average yards per carry. He'll probably get up to 4.5, which is reasonable, especially with the volume he's going to get. He's going to absolutely smash. I'm consensus with my RB4, Najee Harris. Love it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, number 5 overall. I'm going with Derrick Henry in this spot. There's not too much to say here. Derrick Henry coming off the injury. I didn't forget about him. He comes back at the end of the season, looks himself in the playoffs to look fine. Derrick Henry's he's a mauler. He's going to have games where he puts up, he'll have multiple 2-touchdown games. This year, the Titans have actually reduced the number of weapons that they have in the passing game to the point where they're going to have to throw Derrick Henry out there a little bit more, and they might even have to throw to Derrick Henry a little bit more than they have in the past. So I'm just going right back to Derrick Henry. I don't think that injury last year is enough to assume that now he's this injury-prone guy. It was really his first significant injury of his career, and it was only like a month or so or 6-week injury. I think he comes back strong. He is getting older. I think he's 28 years old. This might be our last swan song, but I'm taking another ride with D-Rock.
The king, baby. He's a bala. He's a mala. He's a shot kala. I'm not going to do a geek rap because I just don't have the skills. I just don't have the skills. But here, you're a little higher on Derrick Henry than I am, admittedly. But listen, it doesn't matter if teams are going to stack the box against King Henry. He's going to continue to produce no matter what. And if you look at, which running back has the most likely outcome to get in the box 20 plus times rushing the ball, it's Derrick Henry. He's an absolute monster. The team itself, for me, is taking a step back. Losing A.J. Brown to me is a big deal. Treylon Burks, I like Treylon, but this whole asthma situation worries me. I mean, you want to hear glowing remarks for these rookies.
I think the number one wide receiver on that team is Robert Woods, and I love Robert Woods this year. So, proceed with caution with Treylon Burks.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, this isn't going to be a trade conversation, but they're not going to be as potent in offense.
No.
In the passing game as they were last year. Ryan Tannehill kind of showed us what he was. I mean, I think the previous season was kind of a facade. They're going to have to rely on Derrick Henry. That's just the bottom line. And look, they brought in Hassan Haskins as kind of a breather back, but Henry's going to be 80%, 85% of the touches in the backfield again this year. So I wouldn't worry about Derrick Henry. He's pretty reliable, pretty safe.
You did mention Hassan though, and I like running backs that have a very clear cut handcuff, and I think that's an advantage to me. I prefer those guys, especially in best ball. When I'm drafting in best ball, it's super critical for me that I handcuff my running back. Best ball is all about continuing to produce from every spot when you can. And especially in a league against your friends or a 12-person league, not against your friends, but against a league and not in a giant tournament, I always want to handcuff my backs. I think the handcuff for Derrick Henry is fairly obvious. So that actually helps the case of why I'm very comfortable taking him as my number 5 running back overall. All right, moving on, we've got number 6, and this is another very easy to handcuff, if not an expensive handcuff back, but I'm going with Dalvin Cook as my number 6 running back this season. One of the things, listen, Dalvin Cook speaks for himself. He's actually, up until last year, he had the second lowest bust rate of any running back on a week-over-week basis besides Christian McCaffrey. So it's a very special thing when a running back who's not a prolific pass catcher can achieve a sub 5% bust rate. And a bust rate meaning where he delivered a disappointing, essentially what is a disappointing enough fantasy production total that essentially busts on your lineup. He almost never did. Up until last year, he did have a few bust games last season. But what I like and what I'm loving hearing is an emphasis on the passing game by the new Vikings coaching staff that I think will lead to Cook surpassing his 2 to 3 receptions per game averages of the past few years. Cook can catch passes just fine. They just didn't use the running back position like that in the previous regime. If they start throwing to Cook a little bit more, oh my goodness, look out. This could be what people were hoping from Christian McCaffrey at pick number 2. He's going to smash. Obviously, he's gotten hurt late in the season in the past few years, and I don't see that changing. I think he can get banged up, but that's why you need his super premium handcuff in Alexander Mattison.
Alexander Madison. Yeah, I mean, look, Dalvin Cook, I don't really have much to add. I mean, he had almost 4 targets a game last year, so I wouldn't call him a prolific pass catcher, but he's a competent pass catcher. He catches the ball when he's targeted, which is a good thing. One of the reasons that people are reluctant to draft him is because he typically only plays 12, 13 games a season. But I mean, again, you can't forecast his injuries. Every running back, every collision is like a car crash. There's a chance where these guys are going to get hurt. So I think at this stage of the draft, you have to be injury agnostic. It's one of the reasons why I decided to move Christian McCaffrey up. For that reason, Dalvin Cook has just as likely a chance to score as the RB1. He's my RB5, so I have him one slot ahead of you. We're both actually ahead of consensus. I mean, he's going around the 1-2 turn right now, which is criminally late.
Yeah, I just think you have to throw out the worries about the injuries and just make sure that you draft Alexander Madison. It's that simple. If in best ball, if you have Dalvin Cook and you don't get Alexander Madison, you're not in a good spot, because it could be Cook getting hurt week 13 and then 14, 15. You need the running back spot scoring from you. Got to pay a little bit more for Madison than you might for, let's say, like a Khalil Herbert type of backup running back. But whatever, you're still not paying a premium. He's still cheaper than Tony Pollard. So fine. And Madison is not usable in weeks where Dalvin Cook plays. That's fine also. I don't need him. I need him in the weeks where Dalvin Cook doesn't play. So just make sure you're cuffing Dalvin Cook, and you're going to have a great season with that pick. All right. Number 7 overall, I've got Austin Ekeler. Now, we've talked about some pass-catching running backs already, and Austin Ekeler, by consensus, actually going a little bit ahead of this. He scored 20 touchdowns last year, but here's the thing. Austin Ekeler specifically requested from the team some relief. He said, hey, go out and get a back so I can go in and do my thing. I think we see a massive touchdown regression. I do not see another 20 touchdowns in the cards for Ekeler this year. I do see, 5-6 targets per game. He's going to do his thing, but I think that the ADP is a little too high on Austin Ekeler this year. And so this is one of those spots where, because his ADP is RB3 or 4, and I've got him really here at RB7, I won't probably have much exposure to him outside of, dynasties where I already have him. But I still think Eckler's set up for a great year on a great offensive team.
Great year, great offense. We already talked about the Chargers in previous podcasts, just about how good they're going to be. And look, I buy into the hype for Austin Ekeler. I know he's not going to get 20 touchdowns, but to forecast 20 touchdowns for any of these players, I think is a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. I mean,
I think the carries go down. He's going to get 12, 13 touches per game rather than the 16 to 18 he got last year, where they just didn't have good backups.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, Isaiah Spiller is a competent backup. I wouldn't call him electric. He looked better in college than his athleticism proved to be at his combine. He didn't really test it at the combine, but at his pro day, excuse me. But yeah, he's a competent back. I think that when they get into the red zone and they want to score touchdowns, it's going to be Austin Ekeler getting those high caloric touches, as we like to say. So for that reason, I'm still in on Ekeler. But listen, like, it's a conversation. I mean, we're talking about very similar tier players at this point. And if you prefer Derrick Henry, if you prefer Dalvin Cook, get your flavor, because none of these guys are really going to bust your team unless there's an injury. But you can say that about any one of these players. I mean, on Ekeler, he's my number 3 running back overall, but having him here at 7, it's still safe. And he's fallen in drafts. You can get him where you would take him, Kevin. Like, that's the thing.
Usually ADP, one of the tough things about doing this is, when you're ahead of the crowd on a call, what ends up happening, and it's fun, we do fantasy football year round. So, if I'm ahead of the crowd in March, April, May, what ends up happening is by August, things start to come around a lot of times and level out. It's hard to be, much like just the betting markets. A lot of things, that final line is usually really close to where it should be a lot of time, although there's still some discrepancies, but it always made sense with Austin Ekeler, just because, as much as I love him, and again, when we talk an underdog, it's a half point PPR format, so that even further mutes pass catching versus touchdown scores. I definitely am much less high on Austin Ekeler in the underdog half point PPR FanDuel style format. A little bit higher on him over on DraftKings, where 100 yards gets you the bonus, and the receptions really help. But be wary of Austin Ekeler as pick number 3 overall. I like him here, but I like him as my number 7 running back. Moving on, number 8. Again, everybody's got little flaws here. And this is not a guy that I will personally have a lot of exposure to this year just because of the way most drafts are going to fall. I'm just not going to have a ton of this. But I've got Joe Mixon as my number 8 running back overall. And here's an interesting factoid, Shane. Joe Mixon was part of the nuts Millie Maker winning lineup on DraftKings 6 times last season.
That's insane.
By
not shocking at
far,
all.
for a single player, by far. And we talked about it 3 times. We kept talking about it. It kept happening again and again. But what's interesting about it was there's a reason why he kept hitting that and not being super high owned is because in between his 30-plus point explosions were disappointing games. And so I went back and asked myself, why are these disappointing games happening? Why is he such an up and down player versus other running backs that appear to be 3-down guys? And the answer is because he's not a 3-down back. The issue with Joe Mixon remains that he cannot pass protect to save his life. He cannot do it. There's a reason why the team brings on Samaje Perine in those situations, because Samaje can pass protect and Joe Mixon simply cannot. And the problem with that is that leads to up and down production. He'll either be winning you a milli maker or kind of only getting 7 or 8 fantasy points while his team, is in a shootout that scores a ton of points, but he just wasn't involved because he can't block. He can't pass protect. So love Mixon, all the talent in the world, but him coming off the field on obvious passing situations don't sit right with me. He'll still have those great games. Last year, Samaje got injured a couple games and he went bananas because they didn't have that guy. But for as long as they're going to be sitting him on passing downs, I can't have him as a top 5 or 6 guy.
Yeah, no, I think that's sharp. Much like you have to sometimes be a little bit, just be aware when you're playing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, like you're going to have up and down weeks because the Bengals are a smart team where they're adjusting their offense based off the team that they're playing. One of the things I do like about Joe Mixon is he had 13 goal line carries last year, which was near the top of the league. And that's one of the reasons he broke the slate so many times is because when he plays well, man, he breaks the slate that particular week. So just a massive upside.
6 milli maker winners. It's crazy.
Yeah. I've never really been a Joe Mixon guy, so I've got him right around his ADP, and I'm comfortable taking him there. For me, if he falls to me at like pick 2.2, 2.3, perfect value. I'm snatching that up.
I think it's also worth mentioning with Mixon that even though he didn't have injury troubles last season, he has had them throughout his career. So, buyer beware. We forget after a healthy season that, the 4 previous seasons to this, he always found a way to get banged up. So, buyer beware a little bit with Joe Mixon for me. All right. My number 9 ranked running back for the 2022 fantasy football season is none other than Aaron Jones. And, it's a little bit interesting here, even to have Jones in the top 10 or 12, because he is a bit of a committee back. A.J. Dillon's there. They're using both guys, but the lack of pass catching weapons for Aaron Rodgers is really a difference maker for me. In previous seasons, in games where Devontae Adams didn't play, Aaron Jones has literally smashed. He's been an auto play in DFS. Thank goodness for DFS, because it reminds me of the situations that we're looking at in season that I think most traditional season-long guys don't notice because you don't have the ability to make an adjustment. But it's kind of like the Kelsey Tyreek Hill thing where he just goes off. And to play him as a DFS player. This translates to your season-long fantasy football team. And you know what? Aaron Jones, he catches passes, not like a running back who catches a check down, but he can run traditional route running, similar to Austin Eckler. The Packers literally have a package of plays that involve him at the goal line, catching a pass and running it in. So he's been a prolific touchdown scorer when given the opportunity. Again, is he a 25 touch a game guy? Absolutely not. But he's going to be catching probably 5 or 6 receptions a game, which is as good as a mauler running probably 10 or 15 rushes. And then you add in the touchdown upside. The Packers don't have anybody to score with Devontae Adams gone. I just think his touchdown numbers are going to be through the roof. I could see 15 plus touchdowns for Aaron Jones this season. Bold call.
No, I think that's fair. To your point, Aaron Jones he's Aaron Rodgers number one target on offense, period. Like Alan Lazard, fine. He never really did much last year. He had moments,
Alan
but
Lazard would be great this year because he got no one else to throw to.
yeah, he'll be fine because there's nobody else. But Aaron Jones is he's firmly in that circle of trust, man. Like he's part of the committee, and like because of that, we know Aaron Rodgers is fickle. He's going to trust his guys, and by default, Aaron Jones is going to get a lot of production. AJ Dillon is good though. AJ Dillon is good, and he's going to get touchdowns. But to your point, if Aaron Jones is getting 5-6 receptions every single game, that's going to be massive for fantasy production. So, naturally you have to bang him a little bit in half point PPR settings, but for the full PPR, man, wheels up. I would even consider a 1-2 turn and in a full PPR setting. It's just that's the upside that Aaron Jones presents on a weekly basis.
And this is another one where it is a very, very easy and very comfortable handcuff with AJ Dillon. If you pick up Aaron Jones in best ball, you must have AJ Dillon on your team. It's super critical to do this. He's not that expensive from an ADP point of view. And if Jones gets hurt, AJ Dillon gives you AJ Dillon plus Jones all in one. So that is a double benefit. I like running backs with a premium handcuff. And that's actually a reason why I have him here over a couple other guys that maybe don't have the same level of premium handcuff. I just think he's a safe bet. And as long as you cuff him, you're probably going to get your 15 touchdowns out of him. Great spot. All right. My number 10 on the 2022 running back list, ranked 10th overall. I'm going, and this is a tough one because there's a lot of running backs that are just fine here, but I'm going with Saquon Barkley. I love that the Giants got a new coaching staff. They're getting rid of one of the worst coaching, not the worst. No one's worse than Urban Meyer. No one. But Brian Daboll is an actual good head coach. He's a good offensive coordinator. He knows how to play to his team's strengths. He keeps talking up Saquon Barkley. I'm giving him one more try, Saquon, to do what we hoped he would do when he was drafted. The guy's always hurt. His ankles are like little matchsticks with the head. You try to light the match and it breaks off. You ever light a match? Top of that shit, I broke it. That's
the worst.
His legs, his ankles are like that. They just, you touch anything. If there's a leaf on the field, this guy twists an ankle. Like he stepped on a leaf. Boom. It's done. A little scary to trust Saquon Barkley, but man, the upside is huge. He's such a talented guy. I'm going to give him one more chance here. I don't mind taking a shot at RB10. If I get burned, I get burned. But I do think Brian Daboll will find a way to get productivity out of Saquon.
Yeah, I mean, I trust Brian Daboll to get the best out of his players, put them in a position to win. Saquon's got to stay healthy, man. That's just the bottom line. I mean, you can say that about this entire freaking Giants team. They just have to stay healthy, and then maybe they'll have a shot. I have Saquon right around where you do. I have as my RB11 overall. But listen, you drafted him for the upside here. If he busts, I mean, shit, it sucks. But we don't actually. Maybe we throw around the word generational talent too often, Kevin. But when Saquon was being drafted in the real NFL draft, he was one of those generational prospects. He checked every single box at the running back position. That's
a reminder that it's very hard to evaluate running backs, and durability is just as important as talent. At times, though, talent is important. There's one guy I was just talking about him, and somebody was critiquing me, and they weren't understanding that talent was an issue. I can't remember who the hell it was, but it was like. Is Miles Sanders. And you were actually involved in this. I had a little Twitter argument recently about Miles Sanders and, well, he wants the ball and he was going to get opportunity. The guy's had opportunity. There's been no one else on the team and he's fucked it up. There's a talent problem there. But for the most part, at running back, talent is only this much. Opportunity is huge. Health and durability is the ultimate. And Saquon has definitely not shown health and durability. You're going to be nervous every single week that he's going to get hurt. Like you're just nervous. But I think, if he could put one together this year, the reason he makes the top 10 is because his upside is top 5, top 4. Like he can outplay his ADP as long as he could stay healthy. I could say that all about a lot of these running backs. And I do have to say, I just want to kind of bloviate about the entirety of the running back position this season. This is the deepest running back class we've seen in years in fantasy football, multiple years. The 11 through 22 group all look really good. And this is why, coming back to a point I made at the beginning of this breakdown, Shane, where I said, hey, if you want to take Cooper Kupp, number 1 overall, you have my permission. Here's why. Because I like the guys who you can get between 11 and 24. So if I missed a top 12 guy, I don't mind, because I like the running backs a lot more than the wide receivers when you get to the point where the 11 through 24 group are going. So don't worry about needing any of these top 10 running backs, because 11 through 24 still really, really good. Of course, you can get my rankings, Shane's rankings, everything over at DFS Army under season-long fantasy football. We break it down all year round. If you like this video, we'll be back. I don't know which one you're watching in order, but we've got our QB rankings out, RB rankings. We're coming with wide receiver and tight end in the next week or so. Today is July 1st, so you get the idea of when that is. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button on the channel. Subscribing is so important for us. We're building up a new fantasy football channel over at DFS Army specific to fantasy football. So please hit the subscribe button. Do us a solid. Like the video if you like it. If you don't like it, you don't have to dislike it. Just say no. Write a comment. Who did we forget? Somebody in the top 10 that you think belongs here? Are we way off in our rankings? Pop a comment in the comment section below. Let us know. And for Flex Shane, for myself, top 10 fantasy football rankings. We'll see you guys next time. Deuces.